afternoon. I'm Rob Rubin. We are here. We are going to interview with Mr. Pete Sala. This is an initiative of the Town of Poughkeepsie's Historic Preservation Commission, of which Gene Murphy is our town historian. Right now it's November 18th, 2013. It's a beautiful afternoon in Poughkeepsie. Mr. Sala, thank you for having us in your home, and thank you for taking some time. So I wonder if you, sir, could give us a little bit of your biography, a little background. Where did you live? Where did you go to school?
Well, I was born in a town in Lee, Massachusetts called Lee, L-E-E. I lived there for about almost a year, and then we moved to Wingdale, New York, Dutchess County. And I've been in Dutchess County ever since. We've lived in Pleasant Valley, but I've lived here for probably 35 years. And in my education, I have very little formal education, but I've ran corporations, I've started business which are still a success today. I have the real estate business which I started, which I have today, still successful. And at an early age I went into the Navy, and I put a lot of time in the Navy. I served all over the Pacific, Guam, Midway, Wake, Subic, Saipan. I was a deep sea diver and a Seabee.
Would you tell us what you did when you were a deep sea diver and diver?
Well, most of the time we worked where you couldn't see, because we didn't dive in deep places. We always dived in harbors. We had to remove torpedoes or remove ships that had sunk and raise them or blow them down so they'd be flat enough so ships could go over them. And
so you were in active combat, so to speak.
No, I wasn't in combat. The war was still on, and we still had Japs on the island. But the war was over, and I was on I don't know where you're going to fit this in, but I was on the fuel revetment watch in Guam, and I heard somebody coming through the jungle, and I thought, if it's a Jap, if it's one, I'm going to take him prisoner. If it's two, I'm going to let him go by. I'm going to shoot him in the legs, and if it's three, I don't know what I'm going to do. And you're not going to believe this, but one guy come out of the jungle, and it was Willie William, who lives on Route 44, and I went to school with him.
What school? Tell us a little bit about your schooling.
Well, I went for...
You enlist with Willie Williams also. I'm curious about that.
I went to Arlington High School for half a year. And I wanted to participate in sports, but I couldn't because I was working on the farm. And actually, I passed the track team running home to get home in time to milk the cows. And I would have been a farmer today had it not been for the milking, because the milking was Easter, Sunday, Christmas, 24 hours a day. So I left the farm, and I never really planned anything, but I loved every job I had. I loved being a horse trainer. I loved being a deep sea diver. I loved being a Navy. I loved being a short order cook. I loved every job I had, so I really didn't have to go to work.
Well, it seems to me that you've had a long, storied career, if you will. And I'm really curious about, with all those things that you did, and you were successful in all of them too, how did you evolve into politics? What happened?
Well,
what prompted you?
Well, before I tell you how I got started, it was the only business I wasn't successful in. I mean, I was not successful as a town supervisor. I got involved because I became a member of the Town of Poughkeepsie Lions Club, and also was the president of that club. And we were talking one day, and we was talking about the taxes and everything else, and the guy said, well, if you're so damn sad about the taxes, why don't you run? I said, well, why isn't anybody else running? And he said, well, nobody wants to run because they think they can't win, and they don't want to suffer the repercussion. I said, well, I'm not worried about it, and I ran, and I didn't know I was supposed to lose, but I won. That's how I got in politics. And from there, I went on and on and on and on. And
that was for councilman.
Yeah, for councilman. It started as councilman, but it was a horrible experience because it was a battle. It was they sued me to condemn a piece of my parcel of my property when they had alternate routes. They set my son up, which we beat. And in the junkyard, they did the same thing there. They tried to condemn it and everything else. and they sued me. Ritter sued me representing Schuler, who was a town supervisor, and I thought that was a conflict of interest. And I took it to the Dutchess County Bar Association, and they agreed to the paper that I had been there, but they wouldn't tell me what the repercussions or what they would do. So that's.
Do you remember when you first ran for councilman? Do you remember the year approximately?
No, I don't remember when it was.
So how did you? You must have felt some sense of civic responsibility because you continued doing that, and then subsequently became a supervisor.
Well, once I got started, I was a Republican, and I mean I couldn't believe what they were doing, and so the Democrats.
The Republicans, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean the town when I ran, I mean I was the only elected official who was a Democrat in Dutchess County. So I mean you didn't get much done. I mean the machine is powerful and strong, and Paroli was there when I was there. And so I just kept running. I kept winning, you know, and everybody figured, well, you can't win doing this. You can't win. Well, I don't know why I kept winning, right? So then I figured, well, I can't do this anymore. And so I decided, well, let me try to run for supervisor. And I was the only guy that won. All the rest were Republicans.
Was there one thing that you could say, or maybe one thought that you could say that actually made you decide to go from the councilman to run for supervisor? Was there a springboard thing there?
Yeah, because I was burnt out. I was getting burnt out, and I
as a
figured
councilman?
I have to take on this responsibility or get out. And I didn't want to get out because there was so much wrong. So first of all, you got to look at Barcher's presentation because she told it like it was, but she still didn't tell everything. And we acted to the point where they harassed me to the point where they set me up. They set my son up. They set me up. We was in a room, a meeting, and it was to the point we were going to come to a fist fight. And I don't know whether the Lord did it or what, but I reached down and grabbed my valise and walked out the door. I mean, I'm lucky I didn't punch somebody out. But I picked up my valise and opened the door, and guess what was there?
What?
2 police officers ready to arrest me.
Let me just perhaps bring you to a better place rather than walking out of a room, perhaps walking into a room. Mr. Sala, let me ask you what your emotions might have been the first day that you walked into town hall as a supervisor, seeing your name listed as a supervisor on day one when you were inaugurated. What's your
I can remember driving in, and I saw the sign, and I said, I wish my father could see this. But I thank the Lord for giving me the opportunity to try to help.
So you had a sense of pride.
Yes, I had a sense of pride, because when I went to school, I could barely speak English. So my father was born in Europe, and my mother was born in Lee, but she was of Italian heritage too.
So you spoke Italian when you first came in?
I still speak it, kind of. But actually, we went to Europe, my wife and I, for a month. And when I spoke, it took me a week where I could think and listen in Italian. Normally, I listened in Italian, then transferred to English, and my brain had to turn back to. And so it never worked. But when they all started laughing when I could speak, because I actually spoke in about 5 or 6 dialects. And the reason I spoke in 5 or 6 dialects was because some of the people in Dover came from Bergamo, some came from Sicily, some came from Napolitan, some came from all over. And where we were kids, we learned the language by listening. And so I would pick up your dialect, I would pick up her dialect.
Mr. Sala, you mentioned a little about your family right now. Tell us a little bit about your family, if you don't mind. I know you're married. How long are you married? Can you show us a picture of your family?
Yeah, I'll give you this picture later, but I've been married to my wife for 62 years, the 10th of this month. And I don't like her, I'm not comfortable with her, blah, 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 blah. I love her. I love her like the day I met her at the alumni house at Vassar College. I saw her that day, and I've been in love with her for 62 years, and I love her now, right today. Like today, I just came from the nursing home to see her, and I loved her when I walked in, and I loved her when I walked out.
So she's the proverbial, there's an old saying, behind every good man there's a good woman.
I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have accomplished half of what I did without her. She ran the corporation. She did the books, and I wasn't the easiest guy to get along with. And I was blessed. And then we have three children. One was murdered in Central America. That's another story. And my other two children, my one son is with IBM. He's been there for about 30 years. He's very successful. He's good to IBM, but IBM is good to him. And he has two children. One is going to Europe to study next year. She plays 9, 6, 7, 8 instruments, and she's on the dean's list, and she came in first in the state in doubles and tennis. She does cross-country running, cross-country skiing. I mean, if you sat down and described the daughter, you would describe her. And my grandson studied mechanical engineering, and he graduated, and he got an excellent job, paying more than I used to make by the year. And he saw me, and he says, I said, I'm proud of you. And he says, well, remember you told me the harder I work, the luckier I get? And I says, yeah. And he said, well, I remember that. So he's got a job now, and he's traveling all over the United States. And my daughter, she's a nurse, been a nurse for about 35 years, graduated from Albany Medical. And her daughter she graduated from high school, and she signed up in the Coast Guard. Why did she sign up in the Coast Guard? Nobody knows, right? And she's already made second-class petty officer. And I'm so proud of her, you ought to see her. What a doll she is. And then they have a grandson that works in the health club, and they made him manager, and he told him, I don't want to be manager tomorrow. I can make more money being on the floor. So he gave up the manager's job. You see that compass up there?
Mm-hmm.
My son, who was murdered in Belize, picked that up on a diving job.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing. I'm listening to you here, and I'm hearing stories in your personal life of how many people you've affected in a very positive and sincere manner. You'd have to be here. If I told you my life, I tore up the book. I had a log that I kept. I hitchhiked back and forth across the state, and you can't believe the stories I could tell you. Well, what I was going to ask you, because I see your positive influences here, is that is there something that you could say was your greatest success while you were in office, say a supervisor? Was there one thing that maybe
no, I don't think it was when I was supervisor. I think it was I was on the planning board. When I was on the planning board, I fought Marist, and I fought the board that I was...
Marist College.
Marist College, yes. That I was tired of everybody building back here and putting all the cars out in the road. So if you go down South Road, the buildings are all back, and the cars are, and you see the cars as you go down. So Marist, we made them put the building up closer to the road and build a stone wall. So now everybody's starting to do that. And actually, I think his name is Murray. He wrote me a letter, and he says, thank you very, very much. He says, everybody, when they came here, the first thing they said how nice the stone wall fence looked. Well, I was the one that made them do it. None of them wanted to do it, and he congratulated me and thanked me. He probably wished that I'd fall off a cliff when he was making the application for it.
So you had positive influences on your personal family life. You've helped in the beautification of Poughkeepsie. Was that your biggest challenge, or were there other?
Well, there was the challenges every day. I mean, like my children, I say they play 5 or 6 musical instruments. When we were younger, we went to the kids' school, and I saw that everybody that graduated always had music in their repertoire. And I said to Audrey, if we ever become successful enough, I'm going to play for my grandchildren's music. So the 2 in Florida played for 2 years, and then I quit sending the money. And the 2 in Vermont played for probably 6, 7 years, and they play every instrument there is, including an oboe or something that looks like a big stovepipe, and got the thing that comes down like this. And I said to him, play me something. He said, I don't want it. I said, well, try play me something. And so he gets this thing, a big pipe comes down, beautiful instruments like this are worth $14,000. And he gets on, he goes, boop, boop, boop. And I said, is that all you can do? He says, yes. So I went to his concert to see what he was doing. And he was in the back with the percussions or something back there. And every once in a while you would hear him. But then I was shocked because when they stopped playing, the conductor would say, you came in too late. You were too slow. I said, that guy knows what every one of them were doing. I often wonder what the guy did with this stick, right? It was the baton, right? But he was listening. And when he did that, he pointed at somebody. Your turn to come here. Move it up faster. So that's why they all play musical instruments.
Pete, let me ask you something else. As a child, many of us have used the phrase, you probably heard of it, do-over, do-over, do-over. If you had the chance to do anything over again, say in your political career, or maybe as supervisor, would there be anything that you would do differently?
There's nothing that jumps out. I've been a very, very happy man, and been very, very fortunate with a wife and the children. They've all got homes, but I actually went to a half a year of high school, and then in the Navy they put me in welding school. I went to atomic radiation school. I went to deep sea diving school. I don't know why they picked me, but I went to a lot of schools in the Navy, and I don't think I changed anything. I never looked for a job. I was the manager of the store at the Hudson Riverside Hospital when they had 9 stores there. I started a real estate business with my wife and I, and we ended up with like 5 or 6 girls working for and 2 guys in the business. This office is that business, which is still functioning today, but I don't have any more help. And then we started the salvage business with 1 car and $85. The $85 was my last week pay where I worked. And we cut up a car with a hammer and chisel and a hacksaw, and then we cut up another one, another one, another one. Then we got a torch, and then we started doing more. And eventually we ended up, when I didn't want to go to bed because I loved it. I couldn't wait to get up because I loved it. And then one day my wife says to me, she says, you know there's something wrong, Pete. She said, you don't want to answer the phone, you don't want to do anything. But everybody there with a badge. This is OSHA, this is this. Oh my God. And I had one of the car dealers come down because I had a New York State dealer's license, and he wanted me to enter all the cars in the yard in the car sales book. And it to the point where I picked him up by the collar and by his belt and threw him through the door. If I did that today, I would go to jail. But I mean, that was the beginning when I just couldn't do it anymore. And I sold the business, and I went in a real estate business by accident. The guy who sold my business said, why don't you come down and hang around the office? So I went down and hung around the office, and then I got my salesman's license. And then we got in a hassle over the phone, and I said, well, I'll pay for the phone and if I'm using it too much. And he said, you can put a phone in my office? And I says, no. I said, because I'm quitting. So I quit and came home and went and got my broker's license, and then I opened this office.
So, Pete, you've had a wealth of experience, and I'm going to ask you to draw upon that wealth now. For future generations, speaking to the people in the future, in what encouraging words could you offer to them about entering into politics? Should they be interested in politics?
Without a doubt.
And why?
Because life is politics. There's nothing you do or nothing you see. It's all politics. And one of the things that I can't understand, I've mulled it over in my mind, I don't know how many times, these members, these council people that I worked with for 16, 17 years, they were all like Lions Club members, Kiwanis Club, IBM, church members and everything, good people. But when it came to politics, Paroli would sit in the office with his chair, arm over the chair like this, and he's doing this. And they would vote the way that thumb went. I can't understand. I mean, if the resolution was to murder me, if he did this, they would murder me. Now, why did those people do that?
I get the impression from what you were just saying that you would almost ascribe to something that I've heard attributed to Winston Churchill, is that all that's necessary for evil to win is for good men to do nothing. You seem to be telling future generations, stand up for what you believe in, stand up for what's right, and enter into politics to pursue that righteousness.
But they don't have the ability to vote. They will. You can't believe what they'll do. Kiwanis members, Lions Club, IBM, church members, they just can't do it. They're good in every other walk of life. But when it comes to that board, when Paroli put that thumb line, they would vote for anything. Not one, all of them. I mean, many years, it's probably been 6 or 7 terms I've served as councilman, and all of them would do the same thing. I came home one night and went up and sat on the bed, and I started crying. I don't like to tell you this, but I started crying, and I said to my wife, I said, Audrey, it's got to be me. It's got to be me, because they can't be that wrong that often. Well, guess what? It wasn't me. Right?
I believe you.
So then I ran for supervisor, and I put a resolution before the board to bring Rossi up on charges. And they said, well, give him a break, do this, do that. And so I gave him a break, and then he got worse. So the town attorney wouldn't cooperate with me. I was alone constantly, right? And so I brought him up on charges again, and one of the guys said he was going to second the motion. He didn't second the motion. That's when I said to myself, that was the exact moment I said, I'm not running again.
Well, that comes the point when you make decisions. But let me leave you now. Let me just, this is the last question. It's, you get the last word, well, let me ask you one other thing before that, okay? If you could write your own legacy, what would you like it to say about Pete Sala?
Mm-hmm.
Things like he was a good man, he tried his
Well,
best.
what I would say is they would say...
what would you say?
I would say that I was a man you can trust, and that you could count on me. And regardless of what the repercussions were to me, if you was right, I would vote for you.
Now you get the last word. Anything else you'd like to say? What do you love about Poughkeepsie? Anything.
I love that I'm 2 hours from skiing, and the bicycle trails are like unbelievable. I can be in the ocean fishing in an hour. I love to fish. I can be in New York City an hour, and I love the trees. I love the mountains, and I just love that. I would never move from here.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Well, again, this is Rob. I'm Rob Rubin. I'm with the Town of Poughkeepsie's Historic Preservation Commission, and we just finished an interview with Mr. Sala. And this, I believe, is I hope future generations will like looking at these series of interviews. I certainly thank the folks at Royce Ketchum High School for their help in, well, I'm on the board there, and I got to know you, Mr. Wood, and it's just been an absolute pleasure doing these interviews, and sir, meeting with you has been a pleasure. Thank you.